Coming up, let's talk about Tomas Tatar rumors going to Pittsburgh, signs of the enemy, and how it relates right back to Alexander Holtz and his performance. Plus, a look at the start of the schedule for the New Jersey Devils. How high of a benchmark do we want to set? We dive in next. It is the Devils Puck Luck podcast, where, of course, we are your host over here. I'm going to be Adam Armbrecht, breaking down the New York Football Giants on the One Giant podcast with my boy Andy Mack, and the Brooklyn Nets on the Locked On Nets podcast with Doug Norrie. And over there, of course, it is the soul of the New Jersey Devils fan base, the 20-plus year season ticket holder, Danny McDonough, looking sharp.
Oh man, I wasn't ready for these headphones, man. Listen. When we deal with a little bit of computer issues, we deal with it how we have to deal with it. You know what I mean? And we're here. We're here. That's all that matters. We're here. You know
I don't know if we can do the show. I don't know if we can do it.
We're doing it. We're doing it. Listen, we're making it happen. It's very here. It's strange not being in the same room with you. You know, this is realistically our first time doing this.
Don't try to look to your side, you know what I mean? Because I won't be there. By the way, also not what you want to be doing when you can obviously consume us on YouTube, but we're also on a podcast feed. So a lot of this doesn't have a ton of value if you're listening with just your ears. Bottom line is, though, we're going to do just a little bit of a check-in here because we are kind of hitting that little edge. About to get into September. We'll start to get ramped back up. I think the coverage, the conversation around the NHL obviously is going to ramp back up. And we have the Prospects Challenge going on in Buffalo coming up in September as well. So a lot of good things. But right off the bat here, we had talked about going back to when you and I did our in-battle draft on just New Jersey Devils. And at one point, I got to a spot where I said, hey, Alexander Holtz, that's going to be the guy here. Someone's got to fill in for the loss of Tomas Tatar. Now, about 3 days later, the rumors started to spread that the Devils are very much giving Alexander Holtz it is time to prove it, or you might be a top trade candidate. Where do you just stand before we tie in Tatar? Like, where do you stand on Holtz right now?
Listen, we talked about this. It's his position to lose. It's his wing on the third line to lose. But it's going to be. You know, now it's to the point where it's prove it. You know, show us who you are as a player. Show us what you can do as a player. Step into this young core and be that exclamation point on the third line that we need him to be. Listen, Tomas Tatar, we talked about it. He has, 20 goals last year. He's a 20-goal scorer. Holtz needs to be that, you know, and I don't think that's really asking too much for him. I know it might seem like a lot, but I don't think it's asking a lot for him to fill in the shoes that Tomas Tatar did with the 20 goals. And he's got to play well defensively. I think that's the big question mark moving into the season. And we've talked about it on previous episodes. Can he play defensively responsible to stick into this lineup? Because, listen, we've talked about it. We have depth now. We can clearly bring guys in that are going to be able to get the job done if he can.
Why is it automatically, do you think, that we look at him as being on the third line? When we talk about that bottom line there with Lazar, in theory, we think McLeod, Bastian. Like, why is it automatically that Holtz is getting plugged into that third line? I'm not knocking it. I think you obviously want to give him the opportunity. But if you're talking about, like, this to me feels like, to your point about it's your position to lose, we're going to put you in a somewhat high-profile spot. It's not the bottom line. It's not just filling in, the back end of the rotation here. You're on the third line. You need to be productive. We have the comp with Tatar from a year ago. Right. It does. I mean, it just feels like very quickly things could start to go the right way for Holtz, or I know the fan base 100% is going to express frustration for a guy, by the way, who is still just 21 years old. Like, some of this needs to come back to his attitude and his approach relative to the other guys in the organization who are all, brimming with confidence and excitement about where the team is going right now.
Yeah, listen, we talk about pressure, right? This young team is going to have pressure on no matter what. And Holtz is one of he's going to have a ton of pressure on him. He knows he needs to produce. He knows that if he doesn't and he has some sloppy play, listen, the leash is short, but he's going to get that opportunity. And to answer your question, the third line, I think that you need a complement of veteran players to play with him, like Haula, like Palat, that are going to be defensively responsible. They're those kind of players, and they're still able to score goals. But I think it's going to help his development and his growth. You put him on the fourth line, it's the fourth line historically is, you know, bang 'em up type of line, you know, physical presence, having a Lazar, having a Bastion on that line. He doesn't belong on that line. He's too fast. You know, he has a lot of skill offensively, and he needs to be on one of the top 3 lines.
When we talk about then tying it back into Tomas Tatar, obviously the 32-year-old veteran, over the last couple of weeks, we're talking about this over on hockeynews.com, who's just covering the fact that there's been basically rumors connecting him to the Pittsburgh Penguins. You and I talked about the Metro Division, had the crossover, obviously, with From the Blue Seats podcast on the network as well. I mean, talk about one of the maybe the worst landing spots from a Devils perspective, because we already think with the veteran talent, they're ready for one more push. Adding Tatar into that would be a significant.
I've told you about this, man. I told you I wanted Tatar back, and there's a reason. He has grit, you know. And yeah, he's an older player now, a veteran player. The Penguins are going to be old this year. We know they're going to be old this year. We know their identity. That's essentially what they're doing. Here's the thing: Tuna does not want a 1-year deal. He wants a 3-year deal. You know, he wants maybe even a 4-year deal. So, do I think the Penguins are going to get it done with Tatar? I do. I think that he's an important piece with that veteran group. Man, it sucks having him in the Metro. That's like the one thing I was really hoping, if he wasn't a Devil, that he was out west. But it solidifies where I stand when we talk about the Metro Division. I still think the Penguins are going to be in the top 3 in the Metro, and I think the Rangers are going to get bumped down, because I think Tatar does add a piece that the Penguins need with that grit on the boards, you know, and to defend the top players, you know, to be that muscle a little bit for the top players and have that grinded out type of shift, you know, offensively for the Penguins.
Let's then round out this part of the conversation before we take a look at the schedule a little bit here. Who is your candidate? So Alexander Holtz comes out and he flatlines. It's not what you want it to be. Now, we know come trade deadline, we can talk about putting him into a package. He's still a young player, and another team could say, yeah, we're going to put you on our second line because we're bad, right? Name Team X. Who would be your candidate then? In-house, what would you automatically do to make the one-to-one change, right? To patch that up there on the third line?
Nosek. In a heartbeat. You know, if Nosek's not on the 4th line and it's Lazar, then it'll be Nosek. You know, I think we talked about this last episode. The 4th line, I think, is either going to be Nosek or Lazar. I think we can agree on that, you know, and we think Holtz is going to be on the 3rd line. If Holtz struggles, you know, you're going to see Lazar as a consistent 4th line player, and you're going to see Nosek on the 3rd line. I think that keeping it in-house is what the Devils want to do. And I think Nosek with the veteran presence, I still think the Devils need to have that experience of NHL players knowing how it is to get into that grinded out type of end of season, where I think a player like Nosek is going to be very important to this Devils team.
No reason for Foot to be entering into this conversation too soon.
Defenseman or offensive? Which guy are we talking about?
Offensive. Yes. Yeah. By the
they're
way,
together now, bro. They're together
with the qualify now. With
listen.
You know, but because and the only reason I bring it up is because Holtz has a lot of expectations. It's funny. I think in the coming weeks we're going to talk about. I have some great back articles going back to before last year. Holtz was talked about as last season being the year when maybe he comes in when he makes an impact, but then quietly in the background it's Nosek. Quietly in the background, now that's a veteran being added in, but Foot being talked about. Some of these other players where I'm just like, and you even mentioned talking about, potential other players that come in that are going to be on the 4th line, if not Lazar. It's like at some point, if you have a young player plugged in there now, it seems interesting that you wouldn't just keep going young, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for something young and something new.
I think if the Devils can afford to do that, if they're playing extremely well, you might see a younger guy come up. However, here's a Lindy
Ruff. This is a Lindy Ruff special.
Yeah, no. Here's a question.
We're in for a Lindy Ruff start of the season special, where you're getting dose after dose of different bodies all the time. If Holtz doesn't,
it's true though. But here's the big question, right? If say Devils have a couple of injuries, are you bringing up Tierney or are you bringing up Foot, offensive Foot, the younger Foot? What are you doing? What are you doing? The young Foot.
The young Foot. Bring up the young Foot. Yeah, I think I would bring up Foot because it just in this moment he seems like he has the buzz of a player that is ascending right now and deserving of it. Tierney has had the consistency of where we think he's going, but that's just like that's like recency bias, right?
Yeah, he's had a cup of coffee in the NHL. You know, he hasn't had that crazy NHL experience where you can rely on him to be, a staple on that 3rd line if there's injuries, So, and I'm with you. I'm with you with that. I think Nosek is a very undervalued asset that the Devils got, 1 year, $1 million. It was a phenomenal deal, in my opinion. I think Nosek's going to add that security blanket. Yeah, I think you can agree. Let's think worst case right now. Okay, 20 games into the season, Holtz has 3 goals. couple assists. He's
Right.
just not playing well, right? He's just down, bad year. You see that he has some flashes. What do? Do you right there, then and there, do you send him back to the AHL? Probably. That's what Devils probably going to do. And then he be trade bait. I think we can agree.
Yep.
Or do you let him learn? Like, do you let Holtz, if he's struggling within like 8 to 10 games, if he's struggling like mightily and we see it, even a dozen games, do you let him work it out? Or do you say, you know what, that's the short lease, we're done. Let's get him down to the AHL. He's still young. He still needs to develop. He's not like Dawson Mercer, who's 21 and really growing into the position and to the player he is. Not to compare them. Obviously, Dawson Mercer is a better player, in my opinion. But, what do? How short is your leash? My leash is a dozen games. I give him a dozen games. If he's really, really struggling, if he's a defensive liability, if he's giving up clear chances to the opposition, if he's not shooting the puck, if he's not getting, goal scoring chances, are you putting him in the AHL? For me, yes. After a dozen games, I give him a dozen to 15 games.
Yeah. When we can close out on that thought, to me, again, if you're bringing him up, then you got to ride or die with him for longer than 12 to 15 games. And I understand it could come at the detriment of a couple of wins or losses, right? Or it could come at the detriment of having to shuffle who you're keeping up because you want to have an extra offensive player that you can rotate in and maybe bench him down midway through games and say, sorry, those are your shifts. You don't look like you have it tonight, right? So that would be my approach, but it just feels like organizationally, they are setting him up for a sink or swim. If it doesn't look right over however many games, if they put him down to the AHL, like I assume this is the way it goes. You come up, chance to perform. It doesn't look right. You get sent down. He's traded. Like I don't think I think the process is going to be very quick with him because it doesn't make sense to say you're bringing him up for this opportunity and then simultaneously saying, "Oop, you're not quite ready yet. Let's go season you for a couple more years." They have a ton of young guys. They have a ton of young talent. It would just, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it seems like you're trying to do two things here. Either you believe in him and let him struggle and fight through it because he's going to get there. Yeah. Or what's the other option? Then you got to go make a move.
No, I agree with you. But here's the big question. How confident are you? Are you confident? Because I'm 50-50. Like, I so desperately want to see this kid succeed because he has been through the ringer with what he's done in his NHL career and his AHL career, and he deserves the chance. We all agree he deserves the chance. I want to see him succeed so badly. Do I definitely think he will? No, I'm so 50-50 on it. I think that he is such a talented player, but I think that he is in his head a lot, especially with what's been going on, with him at the NHL level. I just worry about his consistency, and I worry if he struggles after 3 games, that's going to affect him a dozen games, and that's my big concern for Holtz.
I think I personally think we're all going to be pleasantly surprised. Like, I think that he folds into that thing of, yes, there have been the struggles, but again, remember, what he has 3 seasons at the AHL level, Utica with the Comets there after coming up from Binghamton, 21-22, 52 games, 26 goals, 25 assists.
Yeah, no, 100%.
The production is there, right? Like, and I just think having guys like Toffoli, right, having some veterans in and around him, I think you get him up to the NHL level where there's accountability there, where there's stability there, and I actually think you'll see that grow. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this actually becomes a non-story, right? That he comes up and he plays.
And it's even better about that. If he does play phenomenally well and say some guys are banged up, need a couple nights off, like, I'd love to see him on a line with Hughes. Like, I'd love to see what he can do with Jack Hughes for a game or two, and that's why you root for him so much, because that he has the talent. It's just a matter if he can put his game together really well.
Yep.
And if he does well, like I said, people listen, the older guys might get a little banged up, just need a rest for a couple of days, upper body injuries, how it goes. So, I'd love to see him get a chance on a line with a Jack Hughes, and see what he could do.
Coming up here in a second, let's turn our attention over to the upcoming schedule for the New Jersey Devils. What do the first 10 to 15 games look like? Where do we set our expectations? And is there any possibility, maybe along with Alexander Holtz, for a pitfall early in the year for our Devils? We'll dive into that coming up in a second. First, got to tell you about our friends over at DraftKings. Download for new customers the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use promo code THPN. Bet just $5 to score $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook Go ahead and get that app now. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And you can go ahead in New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. You go ahead and see DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. 1 boost per eligible game. Opt-in required. Max bet $50. 10+ leg required for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions, they do, of course, apply. Also got to tell you about our friends, over at Raycon, because if you're going on vacation here at the end of August, squeezing in that last little dip into the ocean, it's about not only vacations, but a vacation state of mind. Whether I want to listen to, I don't know, Danny, what's your favorite band you're rocking to right now?
I got a lot.
Okay, that wasn't helpful. Maybe I'm listening to the Foo Fighters on repeat, or I just need to retreat inside my head for a little bit. I love creating my own summer soundtrack and popping on my Raycon wireless earbuds. That's because there's so much going on all summer. Sometimes, yes, you need to either get pumped up, like with Foo Fighters, if you're going out to hang out with friends, or you want to go ahead and stay calm with some guided meditation. That's when I pop on a little Bon Iver. Listen, I can tell you right now that Raycons are the best way to listen. They use earbud tap functions to toggle between 3 customizable sound profiles, noise isolation, and awareness mode. Raycons have 32 hours of battery life, including 8 hours of playtime, so you can listen to what you want when you want for a really long time. They come in custom gel tips for the most comfortable in-ear fit, and they start at half price of those other premium audio brands, but sound just as good. And Raycons come with a 30-day happiness guarantee, so you can rely on getting a quality product and have nothing to lose. Go ahead and create your own soundtrack with Raycon right now. THPN is the code you're going to use for Devil's Puck Luck listeners, and get 15% off with their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/of course THPN. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to save 15% off on Raycons. Buy raycons.com/THPN.
You know who's a band that I want to kind of see again? Smashing Pumpkins are going around and touring.
Okay, you came in a little bit late for that, but go check out Raycons. They're a great product.
Yeah, you should. I came in way late. I'm sorry about that, buddy.
No, we'll go clean that up in post. We're not going to. We're going to leave it out there just like that freaky looking set of headphones and whatever that microphone.
Oh, man, it's just terrible.
Oh, boy. But the other thing that we're doing.
Maybe I should just do one of these.
I don't think that's the answer. We're going to you're going to put those things right back on your head, and we're going to start talking about the Devils' schedule here in the upcoming season. Okay, so first things first, what do we get a total of? We get a total of, I'm not going to dive into these, but we get a total of 7 preseason games that'll start at the end of September. It's 25th. So we'll get a nice little selection of games there. Some in division, a couple against the Flyers, obviously the Rangers. So we're actually going to get a little bit of the taste of some of the anger that you'll feel when we get to the regular season. Not nearly as critical as when the season kicks off. Opening night is going to be against the Red Wings, October 12th, 7 p.m. So when we look at these opening 12 to 15 games, we mentioned the Red Wings there. They're going to get the Coyotes. We're going to get the Panthers. That's actually going to be a fun matchup. And then we get some in-division ones with the Islanders there, Canadians mixed in. Just what's your knee-jerk reaction here over the start of the season? Because I think there's a couple of interesting ones, like Minnesota, who had a surprising run there last season. But overall, I kind of like the opening gate here for the Devils to get out to a fast start.
I do too. I expect 4 out of 5 right off the first 5. It's the first 2 home games. You're playing the Red Wings. You're at home. Listen, the Red Wings are an improved team. You're going to see that they improved, obviously, watching them on the ice. But Devils are a better team, through and through. Obviously, Coyotes, they're a bad team. You got to beat up on bad teams. You got to show who you are to bad teams. Florida Panthers is going to be a tough game. It's at home. I'm super excited. That's probably out of the 3 first games, I'm probably most excited about that game, just to see, the Eastern Conference, defending Eastern Conference champions coming into our building. That's going to be a fun night. It's a Monday night too.
You know what else I like, by the way? What I really like about the preseason is the Devils end up finishing out. They go Philly, New York Rangers, Philly, Islanders, New York Rangers, and then the Islanders, right? So they don't go anywhere at the back end of the preseason. They're staying at home or traveling 10 minutes, then they go ahead and get 3 home games to start the season as well. So that's really good. And I agree with you. You got those first 3 games. Listen, big battle against Florida, early test. That'll just be fun. I think it'll ramp some things up here. But then when you talk about taking on the Islanders, we've already said, while that is on the road, you feel like we've taken another big step forward, and the Islanders are staying neutral, maybe even taking that step back here in the upcoming season. When I look across it with the Canadians there as well, the Capitals, listen, there's veterans, there's talent there, but I really do expect, how far do you want to go out here? I mean, saying that the Devils should win 9 out of their first 12 games. I'm
Yeah,
not going to tell you it's unreal. You know, that should be the goal here.
You know, I think they could be 7-2-1, you know, after 10 games. I could see something like that. You know, listen, the Devils are a powerhouse offensively. You know, a lot, again, is going to go back to goaltending. The Islanders, to me, are a tough matchup. The Devils are a tough matchup for the Islanders. Fair. You know, no, yeah, I said it backward. Devils are a tough matchup for the Islanders this year. Last year was a little different, you know, where the Islanders, I was a little nervous about playing the Islanders because of how good their goaltending was and how good their defense was. Now I think for the Islanders, they're going to struggle scoring goals. I think the Devils are going to come in. They're a powerhouse offensively, and they're going to put up numbers, you know? So I'm less worried about the Islanders, and I'm more worried about, you know, us playing down to a Capitals team, you know, that can score goals, you know? So it's a matter of playing to your competition. You don't want to play down to your competition. You want to continue to play your game. Lindy Ruff is going to surprise us. He always does. There's going to be some crazy things, you know, after 3, 4, 5 games, we know that's going to happen, but it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, I think the first 10 games, I think that we're going to show the NHL we're going to meet the expectations of what we're expected to do.
Well, I think the last thing we can think about here is after, obviously, we mentioned a team like the Panthers there, but that's the third game of the season. When we get all the way out in the first 15, 20 games, what's the marquee one that you circle and say, hey, I want to see this matchup? Because as we roll through some of these, the Islanders, it's just, hey, listen, Metro Division matchups are always going to be a little bit more juice, but I keep like looking for, I want to see this one. Like, do I get all the way to the Avalanche matchup, which is on the road? Like, you know, when I really feel like I'm getting, I don't know, some sense of here's my statement, right? And there may be 2 or 3 of those games that we talk about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the big one that you're thinking about is probably, you right, buddy?
What is that?
What is what?
Something flush or something on your end?
No, what do you hear?
I hear like a flushing. Something running?
No. You can't stop mid-episode to hear what it is. You hear something?
Yeah.
Is it within the... Are you sure nothing's going on over there?
Is it inside my head? Anyway, keep going.
I think it's inside your head. No, but the marquee matchups obviously are going to be the first time they play the Rangers, which I think is in November. I don't have the schedule up in front of me. I think you do. So.
Oh, I apologize. First Rangers matchup is going to come all the way on November 18th. November 18th that'll be a home game for the Devils.
And that is a huge game, obviously. You know, you're going to see a lot of Ranger fans come and represent at Prudential Center. You know what's going to happen. But that's going to be a playoff type atmosphere, you know, early on in the season in November. And listen, games against the Avalanche are crazy because that's another cup contender right there. You know, you know it's going to be a great game. The Devils beat them at home 1-0, if you remember from last year. So you're going to see more goals, I think, this year from the Avalanche and Devils.
That's a nice little 5-game stretch. Starting there on November 7th is going to be at the Avalanche, home for the Capitals, on the road against the Jets, but then on the road for the Penguins before that home matchup with the Rangers. So we've talked about the Penguins a lot this offseason. We're concerned about Tatar being maybe added over there. So you can start. So I think like sometimes for me, especially when we said this earlier in the offseason, how we think about what we don't want to see, the letdowns, right? Those big long stretches where the Devils were struggling to find wins during the course of last season. Now I think we're going to isolate these little pockets and say, hey, we've got 3 premium matchups over the next 5 or 6 games. We want to take 2 out of 3 of those, right? And you don't want to have the letdown against the weak teams where you know you need to go out and just check that box and get the W.
Yeah, listen, we're going to have games where we're going to play like crap. You know, it happens to any NHL team. Look what happened to the Penguins losing to the Blackhawks, which were one of the worst teams in the league. It came at the worst time of year, probably, you know, for that. Well, definitely for them, you know, to not get to the playoffs. But, you know, you're going to have those moments in season. You know, it's really about bouncing back from it. We had a 13-game winning streak last year. We had a losing streak last year. I don't want to see as much streakiness. I would love to obviously see a winning streak like that, but I want to see more consistency of winning 3 out of 4, winning 4 out of 6, winning 5 out of 8, whatever it might be, you know, winning the 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, you know, to have that consistency. I prefer, you know, to get upwards of 50 plus wins again, which I think we can do.
Buddy, everybody hates streaks. So that's a little bit look there when we're talking about just inside the start of the season for the Devils, high expectations, obviously. And again, but as we get right before the start of the season, we're going to give our record predictions, our point predictions, some things about individual players as well. But I think when you look across those first kind of 15, even out to 20 games, this is the kind of hot start that you want to get to, which, by the way, let's tie it back in to Alexander Holtz. If you want to give him the long leash and you want to feel like he has an opportunity to flash, to struggle, and to correct some mistakes, nothing better than having this very talented team just keep checking off wins, because that gives coverage to a young player that's going through some growing pains.
Absolutely.
If you're still in a good spot, right?
It's a great point. That's a great point. I shouldn't even say anything else now with this episode, because that was a perfect, exact way to wrap it up. You're absolutely right.
If only you hadn't said anything, then we would have ended on a high note. But here we are. At the end of the day, we're gonna come back in. We're gonna keep breaking some things down, talking about the schedule, having some fun. We got some more crossovers we're gonna get lined up as well. And then listen, there still could be something that happens here for the Devils when we look at this roster. It feels like they're set at least end of the season, but we still have over a month to go before we're really getting on the precipice. So anything's possible, obviously, with a GM like ours at the helm, who is just plucking all the right strings. So we'll keep our eyes on 100%. That. In the meantime, you get over to Twitter and you follow NJ Devils PL for all the news and updates, at Adam Armbrecht, at Danny the Face, over on TikTok and on Instagram at
Devils Puck Luck.
You better believe it. Danny really helming the ship over there. So a lot of good clips coming out for there. And then coming up within the next week, let's not set a crazy precedent here, but we are also going to be launching ourselves over on Facebook. And what we're going to be doing is pulling select segments. So you'll be able to get some of like the best clips that we had, a particular discussion around one individual player. So if you go ahead and listen to the whole episode, you can also go ahead and get a sample of what these full shows are going to be like by following us over on Devils Puck Luck on Facebook as well. So be sure to do all those great things. And we continue to build our YouTube audience. We continue to be really excited about being on the Hockey Podcast Network and having everyone support us. It's been great. Can't wait for more of it. And listen, unlike Danny's hockey pants, let's avoid those streaks. We'll see you next time, guys.